I forgot to mention in the start of this video that I extracted the custom Cura definition files for this little 3D printer and all the other versions of the Tina 2 3D printers from Entina's own custom Cura version. So in the description is a link to the Internet Archive files I have uploaded that you can put into your latest version of Cura, and so you'll be able to use this 3D printer as well. Last year we got these Tina 2 3D printers from an e-waste recycler, and they were actually pretty fun, but they used older technology. And now, about 2 months ago, Entina sent me the new version, which is their response to all the recent upticks in progress in the 3D printing space. It's like a little miniature Bamboo Lab printer. It's the Tina 2 Plus, and it prints a lot faster, has a better bed leveling mechanism. The hot ends are way better. It comes with 2 of them too. Heats up way faster. It applies things really well, and it's turned these into e-waste in my opinion, because this is really useful. Whenever I first got a 3D printer after I moved to Philadelphia, I got a really big 3D printer. And honestly, I use it a few times to the full size of the bed because I do print things for people. But this is way more useful because most of my 3D prints are little brackets and clamps and things for my building repair or making for other people, because I don't want to buy something at the hardware store that I can 3D print out of ABS. This apparently can do PETG as well as ABS and PLA. The old ones did PLA pretty well, not so well with ABS, and they couldn't go high enough for PETG, so the revamped internals of this finally allows PETG printing. The build plate is very sticky. I mean that in the sense that you won't have things fall off of it too easily. That actually became a bit of a learning curve because, well, when I first printed on it, I will give you a warning, the Z offset was wrong, and so it did etch the first print into the base. So always check the Z offset by putting a piece of paper underneath it. But I first set the Z offset for the generic PLA that they have with it, and that was perfect. My normal methods worked. As soon as I went to print with Overture's Eco PLA, which has a matte finish, it bonded a little bit too roughly to the build surface. This build surface doesn't have any adhesion issues, and I ended up having to destroy those prints to peel off that plastic. So I backed off of the Z offset even more, but whenever I would switch back over to the regular PLA, well, then I would have adhesion issues. So just keep it in your mind that this build plate, it adheres to PLA and ABS and stuff really well. And for regular smooth PLA, do your normal things where you put like a Post-it note underneath the hot end to see how thick it is. But then if you're printing something with something that has a matte finish, maybe ease up a little bit because it's really sticky. Then I printed a few things in this video. In the course of me doing my job, they came out beautifully. And I didn't really have to do any work with this printer. This is finally to that point where I can just set it to go. I want 3 of these washers, and it prints 3 of these washers, and they come off really easily. One thing that I was really pleased to see is whenever I had to print this wing nut for a rock tumbler, it printed the extreme overhangs really well. I think those were like 60-degree overhangs or 70-degree overhangs, something like that. They were like really flat. And it did a really good job printing that. The only reason this one failed is because I had it backed off of the build plate so much that it barely even touched the filament to the base. So now I know to have the 2 different Z offsets depending upon material. I love that it has these tiny little spools. They sent me a bunch of them, so now whenever I have extra bits of filament, I can just wind them onto these spools, and that'll be really easy. Last year, I had planned to take the Tina 2 project further, but I just kind of fell off of it because, I mean, you can see on this one, the old one, I had to set the hot end 20 degrees Celsius higher than it said, because by the time plastic was flowing through it. It was so weak that it couldn't keep the temperature up. Meanwhile, with this one, none of those issues. So my old project of making an enclosure for it, wow, that becomes kind of interesting again. So I dug these out of the closet, and these were designed for the old Tina 2, and they fit this one. Now I need to glue this on, and I think that can be the latter part of the video. But for now, here will be the first part, the first parts that I made with this, and me discovering how the matte black PLA sticks a little too much to this build plate. And then after that is the second print I did of making a wing nut for the rock tumbler, which works perfectly. You know, it's funny, this actually works better than the original nut for that thing because it grips really tightly. Not so tightly that it's going to damage it, but it came out absolutely perfectly to where I can tighten it down to where it's that certain tightness that it stops making all the noise. And then it's just moving around, and I just hear the sand moving around inside of it. Because one reason why they put that in their closet for 20 years was because they said it was too noisy. That's actually kind of not that loud to put down. Well, it turns out if you have a better nut, you just tighten it down a little bit more. So all this time, if we would have had it, they would have been using that for years for their pottery and rocks and stuff. So that's kind of funny how this made a better nut than that thing shipped with. And so I was actually able to get it tighter. And it wouldn't back off, too, because since this is a relatively, well, plastic material, it grips it almost like a hard rubber.
Previous rocket engines worked like an on-off switch, with a full hope everything worked as expected. Testing could only be done at the White Sands test ground because of the remote location.
I feel like it's kind of killing the print edge. Earlier in the season, I built some Mylar squares to help stop heat from coming into the building during the heat wave, and they worked pretty well, but they potato chipped in the heat. So let's make the first project for the new 3D printer to measure the window frames and then make little clips that can just hold the sides in, because they're just sitting up there, and just with a little bit of force that'll unpotato chip them. And on the sides, we'll have to make single-sided clips, but there is enough room to get around the side. So I built the two clips. I made a double-sided one and a single-sided one. Easily fits. I'm being ambitious. Exactly 2 gives 1 hour. I'm going to change the Z seam to random. Oh, good. Me adjusting the Z offset helped a lot, and hopefully we won't have too much of a squished base. Well, that printed, and then I remembered, oh right, this is that plastic that I got for like $9 for an entire spool. This stuff is garbage. So I've switched over to, and I've gotten out my custom little spool holder I made for the other Tina 2. I've gotten my Overture Eco PLA matte PLA out. And look at that. It's definitely doing a good job there. Actually, that kind of works just like it is. And if it ends up that this goes out too fast and hits that, well, it'll just pop it off and fall off. For some reason, I didn't make the plexiglass window for the back piece. I don't know why. And so I'm looking around in this closet, which I haven't looked in it for a little while, and turns out I did cut it. That's kind of funny. Isn't it funny how you'll spend a bunch... Okay. Isn't it funny how you spend a bunch of time on something and then you'll just never really install it or whatever? Let's see if this works. I get why I didn't put them on last time, because I was to this phase and I didn't feel like having things falling on the floor. Well, I have never had this happen before. It failed the print because I can't get the parts off of the print bed. And yeah, that's interesting. Well, I'm just having to tear it up, but it is almost melted into the base. I guess that's a time for microscope. So when I first got this, the Z offset was way, way low, like minus 2.15, and I eventually settled on minus 1.95. Well, for this, I decided to let up even more to where it's not even fully squishing the plastic onto the bed. It's really, really lightly on there, and still kind of stiff. And so now it's minus 1.8 millimeters. The unfortunate side about this is that I have to run this filament really hot, 230 degrees on the base. I might be able to get away with 220, but 225 is where it's best, because even though this says it's meant for 190 to 220, if you do anything less than 215 or 220, because this is recycled plastic, little bits in there will clog up your print head, and it's like within one print you'll fully clog up your print head with this. So that's unfortunate. That's something that I'm dealing with. All right, it's been like an hour or so, actually 2 hours. Let's see, any chance of this coming off? Oh, it is not happy. This matte stuff is, boy, it sticks. Boy, does it stick. Do I have to put my hand oils on it or something? It looks great though. The base isn't very consistent because it wasn't squishing down, but that fixes by a few layers. I was able to print a number of these. Let's go see if they work. task number 2 for this 3D printer. My friend recently dug out of his garage their really good quality rock tumbler, and the top nut is missing. So I have to make a wing nut that has, I believe, a 3/8 inch 16 tooth per inch thread. And I found this website that shows you all the information for it. And then I happen to have a little plug-in in Blender that you can add a bolt. And if you hit F6, you get all these options. So I just put that in there, and I made the bolt. But then I made it a little bit bigger, and that's what I used to cut the threads out of this. So let's print it and see if it works. I made it like 1/4 millimeter bigger, and I think that should be good enough. I need to go lie down for a nap, but while I do that, let's let this print. Oh, that is weird. It basically failed right after... Oh, because it unstuck from the bottom. That's why. Well, that's fine. I can just continue from this point and glue them on. It's only because I had dialed up the Z offset to an insane degree just to get the rough PLA to not stick. And so now this is barely being pushed onto the build plate. That's actually kind of not that loud. Put down. I see that I should have given more clearance on my files that I made. If I have this magnetic build plate over just too much, then... So on the model that I upload to the internet, I'm going to carve away a little bit more of that. But for this, I'll just remember to put it off to the side. But I say, let's glue this on. We got some cheap Harbor Freight glue, and have the laser cut glass as well. Oh, sorry, plexiglass, acrylic. The back is easiest to do, so let's start with that. Now I don't have the files for the laser cutter on this, but it's just simply a, let's see, 109 millimeter by 109 millimeter. So it's a 109 millimeter by 109 millimeter window, and then the front one is 132 millimeters by 144 millimeters with a, I believe with a 12 millimeter radius curve on the corners. Okay, so I guess that is just a square, isn't it? Huh, it is. Here I was trying to keep the placement correct. Okay, we have this. Does this have glue coming out? Okay. I don't know how to open this, so I guess you just poke it. Oh, this is what this is for. Right, that's how it always is. Hey, you didn't rub right, did you? Yeah. That'll take care of the back window. Now as for the front, we need something a little bit different because this one is removable. Turns out we've had these magnets sitting here for the same amount of time that this has been in the workshop or in the closet. And on the shelf, the project shelf, these are the magnets that we want. So let's see, do they fit? Oh, they do not fit. What? I failed us. I have absolutely failed us. So we can't go past the Curie point. Oh, I think that's kind of what we need. So I'm holding on to the drill bit just to get it up to like 260 degrees. I'm dragging it across the plastic until it feels like it's kind of sticking, and then I push it in. Should have worn a glove, but oh well. I'll leave those in now. I've placed this on top of that, and let me see. Okay. So it pushes against both of them, so we'll go that way. Oh my god. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put super glue on here. I'm curious if it'll like sit on this. Oh my god. Okay. And so the plastic will be in between the two magnets. And now I just let those, they're clamping themselves together. I glued the front on and the back on. And now it's been about a half hour, and I realized the super glue left some residue on the build plate. I washed it, but it didn't quite help it. Oh well. It's been enough time, hopefully. So now I can take this, put it back in. I'll be mindful of it on the side that hits the front enclosure. This is dry. I've added a second set of magnets to make it stick just a little bit tougher. And now the last thing we're going to print is a little handle that I'll glue onto here so I can just pick this off. And if something goes catastrophically wrong and the print hits this, it'll just knock it off. Well, I guess that's doesn't. Oh, they actually go out further now. Interesting. So this does go out further now. Well, I kind of felt like making a part 2 video. Might be good to set this out further then. We don't call it 3D printing experiments for nothing. The 3D printed file that I put online is going to have a lot more of a depth to it. And I'm going to fix the offset on the side. How about that? And there we have it. Well, that's pretty much that. The new Entina 2 Plus, which I'm really glad I have now because I've already made like $40 off of it because those two jobs that I did were technically jobs and I charged for them. So I might make a special little shelf for this in the future so that I can have this by my computer and then have the bigger printers at the workshop. And now, I modified the back piece, but I won't be printing it in this video because another company sent me a bigger, faster 3D printer, and I think that'd be a good video for a future video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching. See ya. This is a competent prototyping machine.